Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the center position. For those of y'all that just watched my live stream that we did after the second game versus Evansville, y'all would know that I was planning on waiting on P to join us for this one, but he's probably not going to be able to because he is at his son's tournament, my nephew, and he's probably just not going to have the time to dedicate to this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and knock it out for y'all because everyone keeps on asking about it, and rightfully so. I understand why you'd be very concerned. Center is one of the most important positions on this team. And last year, we saw what happened once Cooper Mays went down. The team went backwards. We'll take a look at some of the numbers. We'll talk about the depth that we have this season. Well, I think that we should feel fine about it, but I do also want to start this one off by thanking everyone who has been donating. The donations have been great for this channel, and you can also donate by clicking or scanning that Cash App barcode up there. That is the best way to donate to this channel, and you can donate as little as $1. But let's go ahead and jump into this video. All right, so we are going to be addressing all of the concerns and questions about the depth at the center position. I know all this is coming from. It's coming from last season whenever Cooper Mays didn't play until the South Carolina game, and we have Ollie Lane starting at center for him. Well, Ollie Lane was not a true center. This season, we do have some true centers. We'll actually kind of take a look at some of the Pro Football Focus numbers, and y'all already know to take that stuff with a grain of salt just to kind of show how Ollie Lane looked playing center for us last season. But I think that this year is going to be a lot different because now we have some true centers. And maybe y'all were thinking, well, if Ollie Lane was a starter for us last season, and if a guy like Vyson Lane was on the team last season, well, why wasn't he playing over Ollie Lane? Well, he was a true freshman, and he just wasn't ready. We've got to roll with the guys that we feel like are ready physically and mentally, especially to play at that position. There's a lot that's being asked of those players. And I think that Ollie Lane, he did pretty solid, but that Florida game, it's going to send out to y'all once y'all take a look at those numbers. So let's go ahead and pull up the Pro Football Focus. And as we're looking at these numbers, please keep in mind that Ollie Lane was only playing center up until the UTSA game. South Carolina's when Cooper Mays does come back, and Ollie Lane was still starting, but he was starting at one of the guard positions, either left or right. So looking at his numbers over these first, 4 games, what we're seeing is he looked pretty good in every single one except for versus Florida. Again, huge difference in the level of competition in all of these games. Going up against SEC competition is like no other, especially up front and even more especially playing at center because you've got those big, huge defensive tackles that are very athletic. They can move. It's a nightmare to try to block those guys, especially whenever you have to snap the ball, identify the front. It's a lot being asked of these players at center. So I'm not really making excuses for him, but I'm just telling you why it looks the way that it does look. So looking at his pass blocking, pretty good at 68.1, and then looking at his run blocking, it's at a 56.2. So overall on the season, he was at 57 with his run blocking and 66.7 in his pass protection, albeit, his grades might have actually been a little bit better at center and maybe in both of these categories. But let's keep these numbers in mind as we switch on over to Cooper Mays. And we're seeing a lot more consistency from him. It's not, any games that are red. Some of them are getting close to being red as far as how he performed on his grades, but it's pretty consistent. And whenever you look at his pass blocking, as far as the games that he was playing in, 65.3, which is, I think, a little bit lower than what Ollie Lane's was. His run blocking is also a little bit better at 60.8. And we talked about this before. Cooper Mays is not the best run blocker, but he does a really good job of being able to wall people off. But as far as moving bodies, he doesn't really do a whole lot of that. But we're not asking for him to do a whole lot of that in this system. So we are expecting for Cooper Mays to also take a step forward from what we saw last season. Okay, that is to be expected of every single player. I think the Cooper Mays has gained a little bit more weight that's going to help him out tremendously. So I most definitely trust Cooper Mays. And if I had to kind of give each of these players my own personal grades, I would give Cooper Mays about a 92. I would have given Ollie Lane at center last season about a 94 to a 96, somewhere in that C range. And as we're moving on to these next players, okay, we'll kind of talk about their grades as well. But the biggest difference between the depth that we had last season and the depth that we're going to have this season is that we've got at least one true center. We've actually got 2, and I would say maybe 2.5 true centers backing up Cooper Mays this year. But the biggest one is going to be Vyson Lane. As we just kind of talked about before, he was on the team last year. He was a true freshman, and he didn't really get to play much. But now that he's had a year in the system, he looks a lot better to me. Now, some people are concerned about him, but just for me personally and watching him in the orange and white game, we did that film breakdown for the members only. And there was one play where he went up against Big O where I did see him kind of getting pushed back, but he held his own. You're going to get pushed back some. That's part of the game, especially if it's a one-on-one block, right? Now, he is a bigger body. He's about 6'4", 6'5", probably about 330, 340 pounds. So he should have a much stronger anchor. And that's kind of what we saw, is that he got pushed back a little bit, but then boom, like he drops his hips and he anchors down, and then there's no more movement backwards. So I think that he's fine from that perspective. He also looks quick enough to be able to get up off the ball and get up to the second level, kind of work on some of these combo blocks. I think that he is going to be a really good backup center for us next season, or I'm sorry, this season. So I don't think that there's too much to worry about. Now, we'll also say this, okay, because someone might try to bring this up, but there was a clip or two of him getting beat in some one-on-one drills. One of them stands out to me versus Jackson Moy. Jackson Moy is a stud. He's going to win one-on-one a lot this season. I can promise y'all that. But also, those drills are not very realistic. As we just kind of touched on, playing at center, playing anywhere on the interior, especially with our offensive line, you're going to have help from somebody. So if Bison Lang ever has to step in, and we're talking about him doing it whenever the game's pretty much out of reach, he will have some help to his left and to his right. But if he has to step up in a starting type of a situation or starting type of role, keep in mind who he has to his left. Okay, Shamrod Umarov, who I think is going to be a huge upgrade from the left guard that we had last year. I just think that, okay? I think that he, as far as I'm concerned, should be the pretty much, clear starter, right? He looks really good. He looks a lot better than what I've seen last season from an Andre Carrick, who I'm sure has gotten better. And then also from Jackson Lampley, who I'm sure has gotten better as well. But you talk about having a really good, solid left guard to help both, or, whatever center is starting out. That's big, because we know that Javonte Spraggins is going to be a stud at the right guard position. So that right there is going to help us out tremendously. Please keep that in mind as we're moving forward through this. Now, as far as the other true center that we have on this roster, is going to be a true freshman in William Satterwhite. Now, he's a smaller guy, about 6'1", 6'2", maybe about 290-ish pounds at this point, trying to work up to 300, but he doesn't have that huge frame, so he's never going to carry a whole lot of weight, right? He's kind of he's kind of similar to like a Cooper Mays as far as that goes, but he's very scrappy, just like a Cooper Mays is too. I love his technique. I love his fundamentals, and I think he's going to be really, really good for us moving forward. He's not ready to help us out yet. Maybe by the end of this season, he might kind of start to get to that point. Again, he's got to gain the weight. He's got to get stronger, and he's also going to have to learn this offense. Playing at center in this offense is almost like playing quarterback. You got to know a whole lot, and you got to be able to figure it out quickly, because we work on tempo. So he's not going to be ready this season, unless for some reason we have to use him like deep into the playoffs. Then, maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable throwing him out there. But if I had to give him a grade playing at center, I would give him at this point, maybe like a 69 to a 70. And if I'm giving Bison Lang a grade at center, right now I would give him about a solid 84 to an 85. So y'all are already seeing how much more I trust him over in Ollie Lane last year, which, I gave him like a 74 to a 76. I think that Bison Lane is going to be just fine. I think that William Satterwhite will be fine as we move forward, throughout the season, way deep into the season, but really more he's for next season. But also, okay, we have Max Anderson, who came in as a 4-star offensive tackle. He's been playing at center a lot. He's been playing at center and at guard. I think he's going to continue doing that. We're going to keep on cross-training him to kind of be that swing guy for us. And we said that he could do that coming out of high school, but he's one that I love his technique. I love his fundamentals. He's a little bit bigger than a William Satterwhite, but he still has to get bigger. He still has to get stronger. He has a whole lot to learn, a long way to go. But I would say that as far as him being ready to play at center for us, about the same time frame as a William Satterwhite, just depending on how many reps he gets playing at center throughout the rest of this year. So, that's not very encouraging, I'm sure, for all of y'all. But keep in mind that we also have some veterans that move around this offensive line, that if we do get into a bind, and if Bison Lang, for whatever reason, can't go and we need someone to step up, Dane Davis is going to be number one on my list of who can go in and play at center. He could play anyone on this offensive line, 5th, 6th year senior, knows the offense well, understands football well. He's played a whole lot of football, SEC level football. So he can do it. And we could most definitely trust him to come in and be a pretty solid guy. Now, I would give him about what I gave Ollie Lane last season, anywhere from a 74 to like a 76. Might have a little bit more of an upside, maybe give him like a 77 or something like that. But center is not his true position. So he's not the guy that you want to have coming in, but he can do it if we get into a really tight bind. Another player that's a 5th or 6th year senior that I think could really step up and may have a little bit more of an upside is Jackson Lampley. Now, I'm not quite sure why he's not getting more reps at center. I think that we have cross-trained him some there, but he's mostly being looked at as a guard. I think that we need to start trying to cross-train him there a little bit more. Maybe the, snapping to movement and all of that is something that's more difficult for him to grasp. But I think that his, body frame and his speed, all that would work very well at center. He might, at some point maybe have a little bit more of an upside than even a Bison Lang, maybe. Now, this is his last year, so Maybe that's why they're saying, well, we're just going to let him play guard because it's more of a natural position for him. I don't know, but I will tell you this. He can step up. I would give him about a 77 to a 78 at center if he has to come in. So now if you look at it this way with the veterans that we have, they more than likely won't be starting a more of swing offensive linemen that could step up if we need them to. We do have pretty solid depth. I would say that we are about 3 to 4 deep at the center position, and it does look a lot more promising than it did last year, where we really only had one guy that could come in, maybe 1.5, because Dane Davis was starting to kind of get cross-trained. But at that point, we hadn't really cross-trained too many people to be the backup centers, and we just kind of started to get short-handed. Bison Lane was the guy after Ollie Lane last season. So this year we've got guys that have been trained because we started that last season. So we're going to be fine there. I know that a lot of y'all have been concerned about it. I hope that this does answer those questions. I feel like the biggest concern for me with, maybe like the top two guys is just going to be about run blocking. And again, we're not asking them to do a whole lot as far as run blocking. They do not have to move bodies. They just have to kind of like help and chip and be able to get up to the second level and just kind of wall guys off. And we're just running downhill right behind them, trying to get 4 to 5 yards a pop. And we can most definitely do that with the running backs that we have this season. So all in all, y'all, I think that the interior of this offensive line is going to be just fine. The entire offensive line working together as a unit, as long as it stays relatively healthy, is going to be special. I think that it's going to be the best offensive line that we've had up under Coach Heupel for sure. Maybe you could even go back, to maybe like the early 2000s, right? Like this line should be really, really good, and the entire offense will benefit from that as well. But that's it for this one. I hope that y'all did enjoy it. Please leave your thoughts down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the center depth on this team. But as always, thank you for sticking all the way to the end. And please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.